Her voice is at 50%. She could have said, I can't do it, but there are some people that says, I made a commitment, I'm going to do it anyway, so she is going to still grace our stage. Let me give you a little bit of a background about her. Her name is NIURKA. She is a highly sought-after keynote speaker, consultant, and peak performance coach. She's been inspiring people to live abundant lives filled with success for the past decade. She's the former #1 corporate trainer for Tony Robbins. And she has spoke to such audiences as Emory University, Marriott, Toyota, Wells Fargo, Solomon Smith Barney. And so she's here to tell you how to bridge the gap between intentions and the realization of your dreams. Everybody, please help me welcome NIURKA.
I have a secret. Do you want to know? This is my favorite group of people to meet with. My favorite group of people to meet with is always leaders, entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and individuals that are committed to the highest standards of excellence in every area of their life. You know why? Because this group is the 3% of the population that moves the other 97%. And I have so much respect for you. And I am so grateful to Stuart Johnson, to Reed, and to Success Magazine for bringing this dynamic group of like-minded people together. How many of you have heard of a woman named Marilyn Savant? Anybody heard that name? She's the woman with the highest recorded IQ in history. And they asked her a very interesting question. They said, Marilyn, if you meet someone today, can you tell where they're going to be in the next 10 years just by meeting them? And you know what she said? She said, I absolutely can. She said, I just need to ask them 2 questions. She said, number 1, who do you hang out with? Who are your friends? Who are the 5 closest people in your life? You know why? Because you will always live up to the expectations of your peer group. When I was 19 years old, I had the pleasure and privilege to meet Jim Rohn. And I met him, and he said something to me that changed my life. I had a conversation with him. He said a number of things, but one thing he said I'll never forget. He said, NIURKA, your income will always be the average of the income of the 5 closest people in your life. And I remember thinking about that back then. I was like, man, I need a few new friends. But one of the benefits of being here is you're surrounded with people that are committed to the highest standards of mastery and evolution in their life. That conversation with Jim that day changed my life. Do you believe a conversation can change your life? Today we're going to have a conversation of transformation that can change your life. See, I have a belief, tell me if you agree, I believe that the quality of your life is directly proportionate to the quality of your conversation. You are continually engaged in a conversation. You're engaged in a conversation with your clients. You're engaged in a conversation with your team. You're engaged in a conversation with your spouse. You're engaged in a conversation with yourself. That little voice inside your head. Do you all know the little voice? Some of you are looking at me going, what voice? I don't have a voice. Maybe she has one. I don't have one. That's the one. That voice has power of taking you to heights or bringing you down. That little voice. Some of you have a whole committee up there too. So today we're going to engage with this voice and have a conversation about transformation. And what I'd love to do if we could, since we're here together, is pretend like we're all sitting in my living room having a conversation. Can we do that? A little secret. And if you're sitting in my living room and I ask you a question, what do you do? Yes, because it would be rude to stare. And the only thing I ask, not only for me, but for all the other experts, is take what we talk about and really try it on. Do you guys like to go shopping? Okay. If you're going to go buy a new suit or a jacket, you got to do what? You got to try it on. You got to walk around. You got to see whether or not it fits. And then after you try it on, you can make an educated, no, not a guess. a decision. You can say, I love it, or it's not for me. But you know by your actions because you feel it. And the other thing I want to do, which I could tell this group is all about, is have some fun. Because a very successful person told me that the people in life that have the most fun always create the greatest success, and they're the most fulfilled. So quick vote. All those in favor, playing full out, having fun, raise your right hand, say hi. Anybody opposed? So, since we're talking about a secret, you're all familiar with law of attraction, yes? What is law of attraction? Like attracts like. You manifest your intention. Here's my definition of it. You and I are blessed with the power of creation. How cool is that? And we get to create our reality by design from moment to moment through our thoughts, our words, and our actions. But haven't you noticed how often in life you talk to someone and they tell you what they want? They want more success. They want more money. They want more happiness or love or health. But there's a gap between that intention and what's showing up. What do you think the gap is? Action. They're not taking consistent, focused, purposeful action. But do you know that behavior is mostly unconscious? Consciously, you do very few things at a time. I'll give an example. Haven't you ever left your office and you're used to driving home? But this time you're going to go meet somebody for dinner. But you're used to driving home. And then you get off on the wrong exit. Come on, you done that? So who's driving your car? It's your unconscious mind. Well, guess what? Your unconscious mind is going and operating your life. Have you conditioned it to operate at the highest standards of excellence? Here is the distinction, is if what you intend to create or attract or manifest in your life is not seamlessly aligned with your unconscious beliefs, values, and identity, it's not gonna happen. You'll do a little thing called self-sabotage. You guys been there? I used to have a tent pitch there. Self-sabotage. What is self-sabotage? All it is there's a gap or an incongruence between your conscious desires and your unconscious programs. My life's work is about creating a bridge. So you tap into higher consciousness. You tap into who you are at your best and what you're capable of. And it's all through communication. Communication not only with others, communication with yourself. Because haven't you noticed how often in life most people are waiting for something out there to change, for their results to change? Have you noticed that? You talk to people, how many people are waiting for the market to change? They're waiting for the economy to change. They're waiting for the challenging customer to change. They're waiting for the election because then things will change. They're waiting for their spouse to change. Or they're waiting for their kids to leave home for school because then things will change. Here's the distinction. When you change, the world around you changes. You have that much power. But what a lot of people do is they resist the circumstances of their life. How many of you know somebody that resists? If you're resisting it, you're placing energy, which means what's going to happen? You get more of it. Do you want a secret? You can never get enough of what you don't want. If you don't want it, it's going to continue to show up in your life. So the first level of transformation is taking ownership for our lives. Everything in your life, the things you like and the things you don't like, you have invited in at some level through your thoughts. This is good news. Why is it good news? You can change it, you can improve it, you can make it better. But the first level is taking ownership and recognizing that you create your experience of reality. Repeat after me. I create my experience of reality. I create my experience of reality. You do. So first level of transformation is awareness. Would you like me to share with you an insight about how your mind works and how your brain works? Science tells us that in any given moment, like right now, there are billions of bits of information that are happening around you. All kinds of opportunities, all kinds of possibilities, and everything in between. Our neurology, our nervous system, cannot take all of that information in. It's just way too much information. It's too intense. So what we do all day long is we delete, we distort, and we generalize reality. 3 things. Delete, distort, and generalize reality. And we pick up less than 1% of what's actually going on. That little bit that we pick up is that which harmonizes with our unconscious mind. When you get this model, you realize that people do not respond to reality. They respond to their map of reality. And the map is not the territory. You've all heard the term perception is reality. Is that really true? Is perception really reality in actuality? Some of you are like, yes, my perception is reality. Perception is reality to the individual. In actuality, it's subjective. I'll tell you what I say as one of the laws of supreme influence, which is my life's work. I say perception is not reality, but rather perception is projection. What you perceive is a projection of what's happening unconsciously. I'll give you an example. How many of you know people that tend to be just a little bit negative? Oh, come on. How about somebody who's so totally negative that even when something great happens, they look at you and they're like, not for long. How can that be? Something great just happened. That's because if you have negativity in the unconscious, you look out onto infinite possibilities, you delete what's good, project negativity onto it, and then you see based on your projection. People do not see reality. They respond to their map of reality. The map is not the territory. So the next question is, at least if I was sitting in your chair, this would be my question. You tell me if this is your question. I would be thinking, if there's 2 million bits of information, 2 billion, there are billions of bits of information, and my neurology can't pick it up, I can only pick up a tiny little bit, then I'm committed to pick up that little bit that harmonizes with the grandest vision that I have for my life. Is that what you're thinking? That's what I would be thinking. So the next question is, how do we update our software? How do we update our thinking? Ties into another thing that Jim Rohn said to me when I was 19 years old and I started in this business. And I was frustrated and struggling. I remember I didn't even own a business suit. I had a little velvet jacket that I would wear. I had curly hair. And he said to me, NIURKA, work on yourself harder than you work on your job. He said, if you work on your job, you're going to make a living. But if you work on yourself, you will make a fortune and you will build an incredible life. And I remember I took it to heart that day. I was 19. For those of you that are here that are, our young audience members, I'm so passionate about you being here. Woohoo! I made a decision that day. So at 19, I decided I would always invest more money in my own development than I did in my entire car expense. Because I found it funny, people would invest more money to get in a car to get them from point A to point B than they would in their mind. And I've stayed true to that over the years, and that's been the biggest transformation for me in my life. And one of the aspects that I began to work on was my state of mind, my state of being. Tell me if you agree with me on this. I believe that the quality of your life is directly proportionate to the quality of the emotional states that you frequent on a consistent basis. In other words, do you frequent empowering states or disempowering states? Do you frequent disempowering states like frustration, or stress, anxiety, fear, overwhelm? Or do you frequent empowering states like enthusiasm and passion and drive and gratitude? I would venture to say that the quality of your life is a direct reflection of the quality of the emotional states that you experience. Do you agree? Yes. Let me tell you a story about state, because I believe one of the most powerful states you could have is faith. Faith is a powerful state. It is the absence of doubt. And I remember reading a quote one day that said that with faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And I thought about that and I said, gosh, a mustard seed is small. Have you all ever seen a mustard seed? It's like tiny. How can you have faith that big? And you can move a mountain. And then what I realized was that in order to have faith this big, it was important to have no doubt. Because faith and doubt cannot exist in the same room at the same time. Same as light and darkness. If you walk into a dark room and your intention is there for there to be light, what do? You flip on the switch. You are the light. But what a lot of people do is complain about the darkness. They walk in like, man, this is a dark room. Anybody flip on the switch? You have the power to flip on the switch. Faith. I'll tell you a story about faith. And this is a great story for those of us that are young entrepreneurs in the back also. And those of you, we can all relate to this. When I started in this business, I was 19, and they used to call me the kid. And like I said, I had my little velvet jacket, I didn't have a suit, my little curly fries. And I'll never forget, when I first started, I put on events for Brian Tracy. And I was doing an event in New York City, and because I was so green and young, I used to get all the appointments that nobody wanted to run. They would give me the ones that were like 3 miles away with like 4 people. And I was selling tickets to his events. And one day, I got a call. See, here's the thing. You always want to be prepared for opportunity. Because it knocks often when you least expect it. And are you ready for it when that knock comes to your door? I got a call one day, and what it was the top individual, the top trainer for that company had a last-minute emergency that demanded his attention, and there was a speaking engagement on Wall Street with a top brokerage firm with about 150 of the top brokers in that specific area on Wall Street. And he had an emergency, and there was only one person left who could run this appointment. Guess who it was? The kid. And they called me up and they said, can you go run this? And I got so excited. I remember I took the underground and I got off the underground and I walked up the stairs. How many of you have been to Wall Street? Do you know the bull? That big bull that's out there. I remember walking out of the underground and walking around the bull. And I was so intimidated. I was so scared. Fear is the biggest killer. But when you could rise above fear and step into your greatness, you will see unbelievable things unfold in your life. I walked in that day and got in the elevator, and the whole way up, I remember I was telling myself a mantra because I was committed to put myself in state. And I started saying, with faith the size of a mustard seed, I can move mountains. Faith the size of a mustard seed, I can move mountains. Over and over and over again. And then the elevator opened, and I walked out, and there was a big, huge mahogany desk. And there was a woman sitting behind the desk, and I walked up to her, and I said, hi. I said, I'm here to see Fred. I still remember his name. And she looked at me, she said, do you have an appointment? I said, yeah, I'm the trainer. She was like, right, grab a seat. So I went and I grabbed a seat. Then she picks up the phone and she calls Fred, and this is what she says. Fred, Shirley Temple's here to see you. I'm like, oh. So Fred walks out, and he's looking over the shoulder for the trainer. You got to imagine he's been promoting this event to his brokers for months, and all of a sudden I show up, so he looks at me, and you should have seen the look on his face. It was priceless. He looks at me and he says, are you going to do this by yourself? So I start joking with him, and I said, well, I got a little green man in my briefcase, helps out if I get in trouble. He was not amused. So we started walking into the room. And as the broker saw that I was the speaker, a few of them left and they didn't show up. And I went in and I did the presentation for about 45 minutes. And it was the cheesiest presentation you could have ever imagined. But I had heart and I had soul and I had passion. And where I lacked skill, I made up with enthusiasm, determination, and drive. And thank you. And I did the presentation that day. And at the end of my presentation, I asked the closing question. I said, how many of you want to go to the seminar? Nobody raised their hand. So I figured I'd ask again. I was like, how many of you want to go to the seminar? Nobody. So I figured I'd just keep asking. But then a miracle happened. Do you believe in miracles? A miracle happened. I am such a believer that when you step into the infinite possibilities of life grounded in faith, When you are grounded in faith and clear on your intention, you will be given firm ground to walk on, or you will be given wings to fly, even if you don't know what to do. I stepped in that day, a miracle happened. Here's what happened. Fred stepped in. And he looked at the brokers, and he looked at me, and he looked at them, and he looked at me, and he looked at them. And then he pointed at me. And he says to them, and these are Fred's words, not mine, okay? And he says to them, you guys see this kid? He says, this kid's got balls to come in here and talk to you that way. And if this seminar can get this kid to do that, I'm going. And I think every single one of you needs to go. And Fred proceeded to close the room for me that day. And as we were walking back to his office, he said, you know, I got a daughter about your age. All she does is ask me for money. Fred went back to his office and he wrote me a testimonial letter on his letterhead. He called up every other Janie Montgomery Scott, that was the company. He called up every other Janie Montgomery Scott and got me into every single office. Wrote me a long testimonial letter, and the very next day he got me on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, where I spent the entire day there meeting all of the experts and all of the key people within the floor. And the moral of the story is that when you call forth your highest standards of excellence, even when you don't have the skills, even when you think you don't know how, when you step into that infinite possibility and you bring out your best, what you are committed to bring forth, you will transform your environment. The universe will yield to the power of who you're being, of your intention. When you change, the world around you changes. You have that much power. That much power. So with that in mind, today, with every expert and every speaker, it's all about success. We're talking about success, professionally, personally, in relationships, in love, and health. Here's my definition of success, and I'll end with this. Success is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. And when you are living a life that is congruent in that fashion, you have power.